My name is Leo. I used to work overnight security at the new Ascension Tower downtown. It was one of those modern high-rises that went up fast, glass, steel, still smelling of fresh concrete and paint. I worked 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., alone except for the construction foreman who sometimes stayed late on the lower floors. The pay was good. Too good, honestly. I didn't ask why. My job was simple. Walk each occupied floor every 3 hours, check the locks, make sure no one had broken in, and log everything in the tablet they gave me. Most floors were still under construction, wires hanging, plastic sheets taped over windows, that kind of thing. But from the 10th floor up, it was mostly finished. Offices empty, carpets new, lights on motion sensors. It was my 4th night. Tuesday, I think, maybe Wednesday, nights blur. Everything was normal until about 2:30 a.m. I was in the lobby watching the security feeds, 16 camera angles, all still. Then, on the feed for what was supposed to be the 14th floor, the east stairwell door swung open slowly. Not like someone pushed it, like the pressure in the building changed. It just drifted. I radioed my supervisor, Ken. He was off-site, but on call. I said, "Hey, stairwell door on 14 just opened. You want me to check it?" He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was flat. "Ken, there is no east stairwell door on 14. That floor's elevator lobby only. No stairs access until 15. I stared at the screen. The door was still open on the feed, darkness behind it. I figured it was a glitch, a wiring thing, but protocol said check it visually, so I took the elevator up. The building had that new elevator smell, clean, like ozone. When the doors opened on 14, everything looked normal, quiet, dark, but with emergency exit lights glowing green. I stepped out. The carpet was soft under my boots. I walked toward the east wing. The stairwell door was shut. I tried the handle, locked. I shone my flashlight around. Nothing. I was about to leave when I felt cold. Not like AC cold, damp cold, like cellar air. And a smell, wet dirt. Not mold, dirt, earth. I remember thinking maybe a pipe had burst somewhere. Maybe water was leaking into the soil from the foundation. I turned to go back to the elevator, and my radio crackled. Ken again. "Leo, you still on 14? I said, "Yeah." He said, "Get off that floor, now." His tone made my stomach tighten. I moved fast, but as I passed the men's restroom near the elevator lobby, I heard water running inside, a sink. I pushed the door open. Motion lights flicked on. One of the sinks was on full blast. Steam rose from it. Hot water. I turned it off, dried my hands on my pants. That's when I saw the mud on the floor. Little footprints, small like a child's bare feet, trailing from the sink to the last stall. I should have left, I know that now. But in the moment, my brain tried to make it make sense. Maybe a homeless kid got in? Maybe a worker's family had been here earlier. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. I walked to the stall. The door was closed but not latched. I pushed it open slowly. Empty. But the toilet seat was down, and on it, a small, muddy handprint. Perfect, like someone had leaned on it. The mud was still wet. I backed out, radioed Ken. "There's mud in the bathroom up here. Footprints." He just said, "Do not check the west wing. Do you hear me? Do not go to the west wing. Come down, now." But the west wing was where the next motion sensor check was due. If I skipped it, I'd have to log it, and I didn't want to explain why. So I went. The hallway in the west wing was longer than I remembered, darker. The motion lights weren't coming on. I used my flashlight. The beam shook a little. That's when I noticed the walls. They looked different. Less like drywall, more like rough plaster, like an old basement. And the floor, the carpet turned to unfinished concrete about 20 feet in. Not construction style, old concrete, cracked, with puddles. The air got colder, the smell of dirt stronger. And then I heard it, a low, wet sound, like someone dragging a sack through mud, coming from around the corner ahead. My flashlight beam hit the wall at the turn, and I saw them, more small handprints pressed into the damp concrete leading around the corner. My breath fogged in the air. I couldn't move. The dragging sound stopped. Then a whisper, a child's whisper, but wrong, gurgly, wet. It said, "Don't go." Not to me, like it was talking to itself. Then it started humming, a lullaby, twisted, slow. I backed up. My heel hit a pipe on the floor. The sound echoed. The humming stopped. And then the dragging started again, faster, coming towards me. I ran, not toward the elevator. That was behind me now, too far. I ran the other way, toward the emergency exit at the far end of the hall. The door was heavy, metal. I slammed into it. It didn't budge, chained from the outside. I turned. My flashlight swept the hall. At the far end, where I'd just been, something moved, low to the ground, small, pale, crawling, not on hands and knees, on hands and feet, like a spider, but slow, unsteady. Its head hung down, hair dragging on the concrete. I couldn't see its face. It stopped, lifted its head. No eyes, just dark, wet holes. And then it smiled, a wide, torn smile, too big for its face. Then it spoke in that same wet whisper, "You're on my floor." I turned and pounded on the exit door. Useless. I looked back. It was gone, but the dragging sound was close now, right behind me. I felt breath on my neck, cold, smelling of soil and rotten leaves. I squeezed my eyes shut. When I opened them, I was facing the elevator lobby again, like I'd never gone down the West Wing. The hallway was normal, carpet, lights on. My radio blasted Ken's voice. "Leo, answer me!" I got in the elevator, descended, shaking. When the doors opened in the lobby, Ken was there in person. He never came at night. His face was pale. He didn't ask what happened. He just said, "Did you see it?" I nodded. He said, "They buried a cemetery under this building. The city forgot. We didn't. Some floors, they don't always stay where they're supposed to be." I quit that morning. I never went back. But for weeks after, I'd wake up at 3 a.m., the time I was on that floor, and smell wet dirt. And sometimes, on the wall beside my bed, I'd see a small, muddy handprint, just one, facing towards me. They wiped the security footage from that night. They said it corrupted. But I know what I saw, and I know that floor is still there, waiting for the next person to work the night shift.
This story was sent in by a night shift nurse named Jenna. She's worked at St. Michael's Hospital for 12 years. Most people think hospitals are loud at night, but she says the real quiet, the kind that feels heavy and watchful, that's what stays with you. She thought she'd seen it all, until one Wednesday, just before 3 a.m. Jenna was finishing her rounds on the 4th floor, the long-term care unit. Most patients were asleep. The hall lights were dimmed, and the only sound was the soft hum of a ventilator down the hall. She had just checked on Mr. Clay in room 414. He was an elderly, bed-bound patient, nonverbal and asleep. Everything was normal. She returned to the nurse's station to chart. That's when the call light above room 414 blinked on. Jenna sighed. Probably Mr. Clay had shifted and bumped the button again. Still, protocol was protocol. She walked back down the quiet hallway. As she got closer, she noticed the door to 414 was slightly ajar. Not much, just a crack. That was strange. Mr. Clay couldn't get out of bed. She pushed the door open slowly. The room was dark except for the soft green glow of Mr. Clay's heart monitor. He was still asleep, his breathing even. But the curtain drawn around bed B, the unoccupied bed by the window, was fully closed. Jenna was sure she'd left it open earlier. There hadn't been a patient in that bed for over a month. She took a step into the room. "Hello, Mr. Clay?" No response from the bed, but from behind the curtain came a sound, a slow, deliberate scratching, like someone dragging fingernails over the plastic-covered mattress. Scritch, scritch, pause, scritch. The air in the room grew cold, not the usual chill of hospital AC, but a damp, deep cold that made the hairs on her arms stand up. Her breath fogged lightly in front of her, and with the cold came a smell like wet wool left in a basement, mixed with the cloying sweetness of funeral flowers. "Is someone there?" Jenna asked, her voice tighter than she intended. The scratching stopped. She moved closer to the curtain, her nursing sneakers silent on the linoleum. She could see a shadow through the thin white fabric, tall, too thin, standing perfectly still on the other side. Then the call light above the door clicked off, plunging the room into near darkness. Only the glow from Mr. Clay's heart monitor lit the space now, casting long, trembling shadows. Jenna's hand trembled as she reached for the edge of the curtain. Just before she touched it, the shadow behind the fabric leaned forward. It pressed against the curtain, the outline of a long, thin face and slumped shoulders, now visible just inches from her own. A voice whispered from behind the vinyl. It was raspy, airless, each word labored. "I'm ready for my medicine." Jenna froze. Her training told her to respond, to assess, but every instinct told her to run. She took a step back, her hip bumping the bedside table. A cup of water rattled. The curtain didn't move. The shadow remained, leaning, waiting. She turned and left the room, walking quickly at first, then almost running back to the nurse's station. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The whole way she felt a slow, cold gaze on her back. Back at the computer, her fingers were clumsy as she pulled up the patient roster for room 414. Bed A, Mr. Clay, admitted 10:15. Bed B, Gray, Eleanor, status, deceased. Date of death, 11/14/1993. Do not reassign. File archived. Deceased, 1993. Jenna stared, her throat dry. She'd never heard the name. No one had. She called the charge nurse, who came up and checked the room with her. The curtain was open, the bed was empty, the sheets undisturbed. The charge nurse said it was likely a computer glitch, an old file accidentally triggered in the system. They'd notify IT. But 2 nights later, Jenna was passing the small, rarely used chapel on the 4th floor. The door was slightly open. Inside, on one of the pews, she saw an old patient chart, dusty and yellowed. She shouldn't have looked, but she did. It was Eleanor Gray's chart. The last nursing note read, "Patient refused 2100 meds, became increasingly agitated overnight. Call light activated repeatedly. Found unresponsive at 4:04. Time of death, 04:17. Jenna transferred to day shift the next week, but sometimes when she's working late or walking down a quiet hallway, she catches the scent of wet wool and wilted roses. And once, while checking a patient in a room down the hall from 414, she glanced into a dark, unoccupied room and saw a tall, thin shadow standing at the foot of the bed, not moving, not breathing, just waiting for its medicine.
This story is coming from a man named Mark. He's been a night shift delivery driver for a regional warehouse for 8 years. He's the guy who brings pallets of stock to all-night supermarkets, gas stations, and pharmacies between midnight and 6 a.m. He knows the empty highways, the silent loading docks, the feeling of being the only soul awake for miles. He told me his story over email, and he doesn't drive nights anymore. He can't. It was a Thursday in late November. The schedule was brutal. 12 stops, all spread out across 2 counties. The last stop on his route was always the same, a 24-hour pharmacy in a small town called Briar Glen. It was a 45-minute drive from the second to last stop, down a state route that cut through long stretches of dark, wooded farmland. No streetlights, no houses, just his headlights and the reflective paint on the road. Mark made this run twice a week for years. He knew every bend, every pothole. That night, the fog was thick, not normal fog. It was a low, clinging mist that pooled in the valleys and reduced visibility to maybe 50 feet. He had to slow way down. As he rounded a familiar curve about 10 miles from Briar Glen, his high beams swept across something on the shoulder. A person, standing perfectly still, facing the woods, their back to the road. They were wearing what looked like light-colored pajamas or a hospital gown. Mark's gut tightened. It was 4:15 a.m., freezing, no car in sight, no reason for anyone to be out here. He hit the brakes, slowing the big box truck to a crawl. He grabbed his CB mic. "This is Warehouse 7 on Route 9, mile marker 22. I've got a pedestrian on the shoulder. Anyone copy?" Static. He tried again. Nothing. He was trained not to stop, company policy, but it was below freezing, and the person wasn't moving. He pulled over about 100 yards ahead, put his hazards on, and grabbed his heavy flashlight. He left the engine running. The air outside was dead silent and bitterly cold. The fog swallowed the sound of his idling diesel engine after just a few steps. He walked back toward the figure, his boots crunching on the gravel shoulder. "Hey," he called out, "you okay? You need help?" The figure didn't move. It was a woman. Her hair was long and dark, hanging straight down her back. The gown she wore was thin, cotton, fluttering slightly in a breeze he couldn't feel. She was barefoot. "Ma'am?" He got closer, about 20 feet away now. He shone the light on her. Her feet were caked with dried mud and leaves. "It's not safe out here. Can I call someone for you?" Slowly, very slowly, she began to turn her head. Not her body, just her head. It rotated too far, like an owl's, until her profile was visible in the edge of his flashlight beam. Her skin was pale, waxy. Her eyes were open, but they didn't reflect the light. They were flat and dark. Her lips parted. A voice came out, but it was wrong. It sounded thin, strained, like it was being pulled from somewhere deep and dry. "I'm waiting for my ride." Mark froze. Every instinct screamed. I can call the police. They can help you." She didn't blink. "You're late." Then she took a step, not toward him, but toward the tree line, and then another. She walked into the wall of fog and vanished. Mark stood there, his heart slamming against his ribs. The cold wasn't just in the air now, it was inside him. He ran back to his truck, locked the doors, and floored it. He didn't look back. He was so rattled he almost missed the turn for the pharmacy. He pulled into the empty loading dock behind the building, his hands shaking as he killed the engine. He just sat there for a minute, trying to calm down. It was probably just a mental health crisis, he told himself. Someone off their meds, sleepwalking. He'd call the sheriff from here. He climbed out of the cab into the dim dock light. That's when he saw it. On the passenger seat of his truck, a seat he hadn't used all night, was a single muddy footprint. Small, barefoot, still damp. He stumbled back, staring into the cab. The footprint was facing forward, as if someone had been sitting there, watching him drive. He didn't unload. He called his dispatcher, voice cracking, saying he was sick. He drove straight back to the warehouse, that footprint burning in his mind. When he got there, the dawn was just breaking. His foreman, an old-timer named Gus, was in the office. Mark, still pale, told him what he'd seen. Gus didn't laugh. He got very quiet. He told Mark to sit down. "You took the Route 9 cut-through to Briar Glen, didn't you?" Mark nodded. Gus sighed, rubbing his face. "There's a reason we tell the new guys not to stop on that stretch. About 15 years ago, a woman named Ilara Voss disappeared from the Briar Glen assisted living home. She had severe dementia. They found her nightgown folded neatly on the shoulder of Route 9, right near where you described. She was never found." Mark felt sick. "But I saw her." "Maybe you did," Gus said, his voice low. "But here's the thing, Mark. She wasn't waiting for her ride." Leaned forward. "Every few years, a night driver reports seeing her. A trucker, a delivery guy, a cop, and every one who stops and talks to her, they quit within the month. They say she gets in their head. They hear her at night, in their own homes, asking if her ride is here yet." Mark transferred to daytime logistics the next week, but it didn't stop. He started waking up at exactly 4:15 a.m., the time he saw her. He'd hear faint footsteps in his apartment hallway, stopping outside his door. No one there. The smell of damp earth would fill his bedroom, and twice he's found faint, dried mud on his own welcome mat in the shape of a small, bare foot. The last thing he wrote to me was this: "She's not waiting for her ride. She's waiting for yours. And once she sees you, she thinks you're it. She's just waiting for you to finish your route so you can take her home." He doesn't drive at night anymore, but he says he still checks his passenger seat every single time he gets in his car. And he never, ever drives Route 9.
This story was sent to me by a woman named Elena. For 5 years, she worked the overnight cleaning shift at Lincoln Elementary. She told me she loved the solitude at first, the empty halls, the quiet. But by the end, she couldn't walk into a classroom without feeling a chill. This is her story, in her words. "It was my third winter cleaning Lincoln Elementary overnight. You get into a rhythm, start in the gym, move to the upper floors, end in the kindergarten wing. I never liked that wing after dark. Something about the small furniture, the tiny coats hanging in the cubbies. It felt like the children had just stepped out, not gone home hours ago. The night it happened was brutally cold. January 18th. The wind was howling outside, making the old windows rattle in their frames. I was mopping the hallway outside room 104 around 2:30 a.m., listening to an audiobook with one earbud in. That's when I heard it, clear over the sound of my book, a child's voice. "Hello?" I pulled out my earbud. The hallway was empty, lit by those dim overnight lights. "Hello?" I called back. My voice echoed. Nothing. I shook my head, blaming my tired mind. 10 minutes later, I was outside room 105. I heard it again, closer, a whisper right near my ear. "I'm stuck." I spun around. No one, just the long, dark hallway. My skin prickled. I called Ray, the night security guard. It went to voicemail. Trying to be brave, I peered through the window in the door of room 105. The room was dark, but pressed against the glass from the inside was a small, pale face, a little boy. His eyes were wide, his mouth a small O of fear. I gasped and stumbled back, my cart clattering. I fumbled with my master key, hands shaking, and threw the door open, hitting the lights. The room was empty, completely. Tiny chairs neatly tucked under tables, the storytime rug vacant. I checked the closet. Nothing. I was about to leave, my heart hammering, when I saw it. On the whiteboard, written in fresh red dry erase marker, were 3 words in clumsy, childlike letters. "Please find me." I didn't wait. I ran to the front office, locked the door, and called Ray again, sobbing. He found me there 10 minutes later. We went back together. The words on the whiteboard were gone, wiped clean. Ray said it was probably a prank or my eyes playing tricks. I wanted to believe him. We finished the shift together. At 5 a.m., during our final walkthrough, we passed the kindergarten wing. Ray's radio, set to the internal staff channel, crackled. A child's voice, clear and pleading, came through the static. "You didn't look under the sink." We froze. Ray's face went slack. He stared at his radio. Without a word, we walked back to room 105. My hands were ice. Ray opened the door. We went straight to the low cabinet under the sink where they keep cleaning supplies. He knelt and opened the doors. Inside, there was no boy, but sitting perfectly in the empty space was a small, white child's mitten. It was damp to the touch and cold, bone cold. I quit the next day, but the story doesn't end there. I couldn't let it go. I started digging. I went to the local library, searched through old yearbooks and newspaper archives. I found it. In 1987, a kindergarten student named Michael O'Brien attended Lincoln Elementary. One winter day, during a game of hide-and-seek after school, he hid in a janitor's closet that had a faulty latch. It locked from the outside. He was trapped. The school was empty for the weekend. He wasn't found until Monday morning. The article said he was found curled under a sink where he'd likely tried to stay warm. He was alive, but severely dehydrated and suffering from hypothermia. One detail stuck with me. He had lost a mitten during his ordeal, a white knit mitten his grandmother had made him. He recovered physically, but his family moved away that summer. The school had the closet removed during a renovation in the 90s. That closet was located exactly where room 105's supply cabinet is now. I don't believe in ghosts, but I believe in memory. I believe places can hold pain and fear and a desperate, looping cry for help. Michael O'Brien was found. He grew up. He's a man now, living somewhere far away. But sometimes, in the deep silence of a winter's night, a part of him might still be there. A scared little boy, hiding under a sink, waiting to be found. And I think he reached out because I was the first person alone in that building, in that dark hour, in a very long time. He wasn't trying to scare me. He was just still stuck in the memory, in the fear. I still have the mitten. I keep it in a box, and sometimes on cold nights I take it out. It's always cold. And on the nights when the wind howls just right, I swear I can still hear him. Not a whisper,
not a plea, just a small, quiet thank you.